Yes, so thank you. Good morning, and thank you for this very nice introduction, Maurice. So I did my PhD at IPGP in the 19 under the supervision of Robin Lacassin and Paul Taponnier. It was a period with a lot of PhD students in the tectonic lab at IPGP. And Paul told me many times that it was very friendly atmosphere. And he remember he really enjoyed this period with all of us. He has a passion for geology, and it was contagious because many of these students are now still working in earth science. So. The Tibet is the highest and widest orogenic plateau in the world that you can see here in red on this topographic map. And in this talk, I will try to answer several questions. First, about its structure and how it evolved during the collision between India, that you can see in blue on this picture, moving to the north, and Asia in yellow, since at least 50 million years. So the other question is, what is the forces balance explaining why India is going so fast for so long? And what are the mechanism and timing of the crustal deformation? So this yellow hashed zone is the deformation of the Asian crust forming the Tibetan plateau, and the blue hashed zone is the Indian crust forming the Himalaya range. So you have seen in the previous presentation that there is a lot of topics that was deal with Paul, so I have to choose some of them, and you will see during the 3 day many topics. Okay, so I start with this figure of Matawer and with the presentation of Maurice. Yeah, you know that Maurice Matawer was very important to Paul, but I really like this beautiful 3D view. Matawer was also drawing very well, and so he was among the first that said that continental subduction is a key process occurring during the collision, from the Indian side, so with India plunging to the north, and of the Asian side with Asia plunging to the south. So this is the famous model of Paul and his collaborator with the growth of the Tibetan plateau occurring step by step towards the northeast, with the different color that you can see on this map with the number. In cross section, only the upper crust thicken in pink for the Asian crust, while the lower crust attached to the lithospheric mantle is subducting. At that time, this interpretation was partly based on the shear wave tomographic model that was showing only, you see in blue here, a wide cold zone that was interpreted as this succession of slab, but with no detail on the geometry of each slab. So we have now much better images that I will show you. So to the west of the collision zone, here, this is the deepest intracontinental seismicity in the world, showing the southward subduction beneath Pamir and the northward subduction beneath the Hindu Kush. But by looking only at the seismicity, you cannot know if it is oceanic or continental lithosphere. So along this profile here, it shows that it is the subduction of the Asian continental lithosphere, and is shown by this negative velocity contrast in blue on top on this positive velocity contrast in red, and this is interpreted and showing that is the lower crust on top of the continental lithospheric mantle. So across the Hindu Kush. Here, I use global tomographic images where the positive anomaly are showing the slab, so in blue on this figure, and it shows that the Indian lithosphere is plunging deeper and steeper than the one that we just see beneath Pamir, and that is detached from this deeper anomaly here that I interpret as the Tethys oceanic slab with a break-off in between the two subduction events. So I use the geometry at depth of this Tethys oceanic slab in the lower mantle here as a proxy for the northern margin geometry of India at the time of the break-off, about 45 million years, that agree with the shape of India when it was in between Antarctica and Australia before its long before it's moving to the north. And it's also a proxy for the southern margin of Asia. And it's very close to what Paul has inferred from the coast geometry in between Pakistan and Sumatra. So then I did the comparison between the position of the slab in the mantle that I see in the global tomography images with the tectonic reconstruction of Tibet that I did during my PhD with Paul. And this gives me a vision of the deformation at the scale of the entire collision and the zone and the entire duration of the collision. And for this really gives me some facility to interpret the global tomography images where you have the history in 4D, or also with the time, with depth. So briefly, after the break-off of the Tethys slab in green and the Indian continent, India resumed subducting to the north. There is a second break-off, except to the west, where India is present-day subducting beneath the Hindu Kush. I also interpret a slab in the lower mantle north of the Tethys oceanic slab as the Asian lithosphere slab. So in the early collision time, the Asian lithosphere was subducting below the Jinsha suture here. And I also work on the change of shape of the oceanic slab here around Indonesia, in the lower mantle, which is before the extrusion of Indochina that you see on the tectonic reconstruction, and in the upper mantle after the extrusion, which was matching really the reconstruction. And this was the first paper that I published with Rob on the tomographic images. There was also in the this is a paper with this, I think the first PhD student of Paul and Yvonne Ledin that I met in Singapore, and in every paper of Paul there is a lot of information, in fact, and that because each of them are very precise. And it's inspiring me really a lot, almost all along my career. So I try to show that in this talk. So this was, he proposed also by looking at the shape of the Tsangpo suture and in the geological map, that a slice of the Indian crust has been also extruded with the Himalaya Indochina extrusion. And I further proposed that also the lithospheric mantle, here on this kind of 3D sketch, was extruded and is present day subducting at this corner beneath Burma. So this is a kind of a synthesis of these results. So you can recognize the 3D view that I show you of Matterhorn, because it's not so easy to draw this this sketch in 3D. So the subduction, the steep subduction of the Indian lithosphere beneath the Hindu Kush, the flat underplating beneath the Himalaya, a piece of the Indian lithosphere detached from the craton and now in the that I can see in the mantle, but on the Asian side, the subduction beneath the Pamir, present day, active, beneath Kunlun, and also beneath Jinsha in the early collision time that I see in the present day in the lower mantle. Okay, so now the second part. What about the forces balance? So you have seen that there is no oceanic slab in front of India, so there is no slab since the break-off, so there is no slab pool. So why India is going so fast for so long? So it was explained in this conveyor belt model. So there is kind of a huge convective cell that is driving India to the north, but still it's very intriguing why India is going so fast, because there is this huge Tibetan plateau, so there is a lot of resisting force. There is no oceanic slab in front, so there is no very driving force also in the upper mantle. So that was a question for long, and I think it's still a question. So I present you a very simple analog experiment that we did in Roma by using the classical material, the silicon putty for analog of the lithosphere and the glucose syrup for analog of the mantle. And so we have several plates here. We push with a piston. So the indenter is the analog of India, and there is two upper plates. So So you can see here that the analog of the Indian indenter is subducting, pushed by a piston, and pulled in the mantle by the analog of the Tethys oceanic slab. So under this condition, you have the advance of the trench, and you have the tectonic forces that are transmitted to the upper place. And you can see here the subduction of what we call the back wall plate, and so with not attached to any oceanic slab, but pushed by the tectonic forces transmitted. And so this is equivalent of the Asian lithosphere subduction, like we have seen in Pamir or in central Tibet. But as we have seen in the global tomography, here, there is no break-off between the oceanic slab and the Indian continent, so we still keep in this analog model and some of the driving force, and we have to push, and so we add what we call far-field forces. So here it is the piston. It is the same in numerical model. This time we add to India one ocean on the side. So we have the break-off between the Tethys oceanic slab and the Indian continent. But if we don't push, so here there is two different experiment. One with no push, and so you see that there is no indentation. There is a kind of extrusion, but due to the slab rollback. And if we add far field forces, we have the indentation, we have a kind of extrusion, but we still have to add, as in the analog experiment, far field forces. So this is a recent analog experiment where they compare three experiments, only India with no ocean on the side, so kind of nothing happened. There is no indentation, no collision. As we did with the numerical experiment with only one ocean on one side, so you have a kind of rotation of India, a bit of indentation, and a lot of extrusion, but mainly due to rollback. And with two oceans, you have kind of a nice indentation, but also all the material that we use in analog modeling, we are not able to reproduce this localization of the deformation and the strong extrusion. So it's for me still something that we have to answer, the driving force of this so fast Indian continent. Okay, so the last part about the crustal deformation. So this is also a classic view of the focal mechanism of Tibet with several zones. So active in red, active thickening is occurring only to the north, for the Tibet, and there is in the Himalaya, but for Tibet only in the north and in the east here, and the rest of the Tibetan plateau is dominated by this huge strike-slip fault that Paul first mapped, and with extension also mostly related to this strike-slip fault. This is a recent paper, also inspired by another paper by Li Haibing, and it's at the beginning inspired by the paper of Armijo also, and that was very important and also cited a lot. So this is a view that I really like to show because it's a GPS motion, but considering that the center of Tibet is fixed here. And in that case, we can see that the fault, like the Shanxuire fault here in Tibet, are really acting as a plate boundary. So that was something that Paul really succeed to the hidden plate tectonics model, that this big strike-slip fault that we can see on the landslide are acting as almost plate boundary. And with this view of the GPS, it is very clear. Since the last so again, you have seen the slip line model that we can still use and reinterpret by adding some detail, but it was also proposed by Paul at the beginning. So this was the first model proposed by Paul. And here we just add the craton. So the halting tag fault, in fact, is also limited by the Tarim craton. The Shanxuire fault here, it's drawing this kind of small circle around the eastern Himalaya syntaxis. And so we have worked a lot along this fault. And probably the Sichuan craton also is doing some perturbation of this model, but still it's a modification, but it's inspired by the model proposed by Paul a long time, at the beginning of his career. Okay, so to the north, where active thickening occur. This is also one of the very famous paper of Paul with what I was explaining. This time it is a 3D view with the thickening of the upper crust and the subduction of the lithospheric mantle and lower crust, and with the propagation of the thrust to the north along the halting tag fault. For me, I work more on the eastern Tibetan plateau here, and so there we have a step in the Mo'o. So it's also a very clear step in between Tibet and the Sichuan craton. But in fact, if you look at the regional tomographic images, you have in fact very clear in the Longmanshan, but also is what I call the Yalong margin here, a Mo'o step, and a very clear step of velocity. So this is the Sichuan basin, but this is the entire South China Craton, which is very important for the deformation. And we have worked so a lot in this region, but I will only show you the recent result on the Muli thrust. So we have done a lot of thermochronology, so I will not go through the method, but it's a way to constrain the exhumation in the crust, and it's possible also to inverse the geometry of the fault. So this is kind of a 2D view with a very steep fault, very deep, and this was the best model. So it's not really realistic in a geologic point of view, but it's matching very well the tomographic images. So we have done also a mechanic model to say that, okay, the fault was very steep. It's probably what we see also in the Longmanshan across the seismic profile also. So the crust is probably, the lower crust, ductile, but even if we have only the Muli thrust in the upper crust, it's driving the deformation of the entire crust, making this strong topographic step that you can see here between the brown elevation, the green one, and the blue one, but also the Mo'o step. So that was the interpretation that we proposed, with probably something very steep and maybe more ductile deformation in the lower crust. So at the end, with all these study that we did with in this region, I was able to propose a kind of a revised version of the reconstruction with to keep in mind. So this is the oceanic Tethys slab, to keep in mind the huge amount of deformation absorbed by the Asian crust, and so at the beginning of the collision, the geometry of the fault was totally different, and the position of the suture also was totally different. So you see here the influence of the Sichuan basin, but more widely the South China Craton here, and the exclusion also of Indochina, offsetting the coast here and between South China Craton and Indochina block. And this is the occasion for me to make to advertise the special volume that we submitted. So this one is submitted to Tectonophysics, but there is also several Journal of Structural Geology and Geomorphology, a special volume in memory of Paul Taponnet. So you still time to submit a paper. So maybe after this workshop, it will be okay. So perspective, there is a lot. Probably you will see during this 3 day. I choose one because it was part of the ANR project that I got on the eastern Tibet. I have worked a lot on the global tomography images, and you have seen what this can bring to me to understand the history, the evolution of the Tibetan plateau. Now we have the flat seam images and the INSAR time series analysis. So this is the horizontal component to the east of the velocity, and it's probably something in the next year that will be very important to analyze. So we have started with Cécile, Marie-Pierre, and Hervé to interpret these INSAR images with the geological map, with this seismic profile also, to try to see where are the main active fault, and in the future the next step will be to have the modeling of this transfer zone, the deformation between the Shanxuire fault and the Kunlun fault. But it will be for the next presentation that I will do. So you have already seen a lot of picture, but I want just to finish with this one. So this was the only field trip that I did with Paul, in fact, in Burma. With Robin. So this was a very special morning with this huge butterfly just after the night. In fact, the butterfly they were very slow, so it was possible to took them in our hand. They couldn't fly, in fact. And after only a few minutes, the time that we took the picture here, after it was not possible, they were flying like butterfly. But there was just one time at the beginning at the end of the night. So that was a very. This is a Lac Inle also. That was a very great day. So that was a picture in Singapore. So thank you, Satish, to organize that. I think that we were all very happy to discuss with him and to be all together with him in Singapore. And that was my last picture with him in Beijing. Okay.